I will now ask Mr. Gustavo Gonzalez, the humanitarian coordinator and resident coordinator of the Philippines, to share with us an update on the countermeasure response, challenges and priorities, as well as some key highlights on the revised needs and priorities plan for Typhoon Rai, Odette. And Gustavo, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ramesh. Secretary of Foreign Affairs, Teodoro Locsin, Ambassador to the UN in New York, Enrique Manalo, dear partners, colleagues, good morning in New York, good afternoon those in Geneva, and good evening to my dear partners in Manila. As soon as we were able to access cut-off areas and see Typhoon Rai's devastation with our own eyes, we realized that we had underestimated its impact. Satellite images may show the destruction, but they cannot capture the despair of people who have lost everything: their homes, water, food, electricity, crops, livestock, boats, in just a matter of hours. I'm not going to share the statistics now, and I think that they are very well reflected in the new humanitarian needs and priority plan that was just presented by my colleague Ramesh. Instead, I will tell you about Nanay Diosela and her family, who I met during my recent visit to the affected areas. Nanay Diosela and her husband are coconut farmers in Hinundayan, southern Leyte. To bring in additional food and income, her husband also goes fishing, and their son is a day worker on a nearby coconut farm. The family also kept about 80 chickens to sell eggs. In 2020, COVID-19 arrived, bringing movement restrictions which affected local trade and markets. But still, the family managed to secure a living. When the typhoon hit, the family fled, sheltering in an evacuation center with a grandchild. But nothing could have prepared them for what they saw on their return to the village the next day. Everything was gone, said Diosela, showing the flattened land, and they lost all 50 of their coconut trees, their homes, and all their copra, dried coconut, which had been laid out ready for sale. Of 80 chickens, only 4 survived. Even her husband's 2 small fishing boats, the tools and nets were gone. Without them, we cannot go fishing, so that at least we could have food and something to sell, said Diosela. The family used to earn about $200 per month selling copra. Simply replanting the coconut trees is not an option. It takes 6 to 10 years to grow a fruit-producing coconut tree, and up to 20 years for it to reach peak production. So as Diosela told me, things were bad during the pandemic, and now we risk disappearing entirely with the typhoon. So Typhoon Rai affected hundreds of thousands of families like Diosela's. To make matters worse, Rai hit regions that were already experiencing high level of poverty, including malnutrition, high prevalence of stunting, wasting, and unemployment. Their chances of recovery are minimal if we do not pool our capacities and resources and scale up the response. Thanks to preemptive measures undertaken by the government, including the evacuation of over 820,000 people, the death toll was kept to 409 people, far less than in Typhoon Haiyan. The authorities declared a state of calamity in 6 regions for a period of 1 year, and since then, the government and its humanitarian partners have launched a massive and rapid response. However, we must admit the sheer scale and extent of the damage exceeds the response capacity of any single player. Thus, Joining effort is our priority. On 24th of December, we launched a humanitarian needs and priority plans for $107 million, to which resource partners have generously provided, and this is the last figures, 51 million USD. We thank you for your generosity. With this valuable contribution, 70 organizations and 145 partners, including UN agencies, the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement, the private sector, who is represented in this panel by the Philippines Disaster and Resilience Foundation, PDRF, and national and international NGOs, also represented here by EcoWeb, have been supporting the government's response over the past 6 weeks under the coordination umbrella of the humanitarian country team. We have provided with those resources, we have provided to the government with logistic support, including hundreds of trucks to deliver its emergency relief. We have also partners to supply satellite equipment and emergency telecommunication to areas with connectivity problems. We have worked with the Department of Health to set up temporary maternity tents and COVID-19 isolation wards near damaged hospitals. We have provided health clinics with medicines, equipment, and disease surveillance to detect common diseases, and we have delivered masks, testing kits, and oxygen tanks to address ongoing COVID-19 challenges in the affected areas. We have worked with the government to help provide over 300,000 people with access to safe water. We have sent tents, learning and teaching materials to support the Department of Education to set up temporary schools. We are working with local authorities to install safe space for women and children, as well as to deliver services to prevent gender-based violence and provide traumatized people with psychosocial support. And we rapidly established coordination hubs in Caraga and Southern Leyte to ensure an effective response. But since we launched the original humanitarian plan, assessment have revealed the true scale of the needs. As it was mentioned, 9.9 million people were affected by this typhoon across 11 of the country's 17 provinces. This is a huge geographical area, and in some areas, the level of devastation approached or even exceeded that of the Typhoon Haiyan, 2013, which is still present in the memories of Filipinos. That is why today we're launching the revised humanitarian plan. And this plan calls for $169 million to meet the needs of 840,000 people over the next 6 months. It details how we will recalibrate our response in Southern Leyte and Caraga and expand our efforts to assist people in Bohol and Cebu. Our approach is to provide multi-sector assistance to the most vulnerable, with an initial focus on food security, nutrition and agriculture, shelter, health, education, water, sanitation and protection, and with early recovery to scale up as soon as possible. As we know, this is a crisis within a crisis. Typhoon Rai hit just as the Philippines was experiencing a surge in COVID-19 cases, affecting both disaster-affected people, but also humanitarian responders, slowing the response and burdening the already disrupted medical system. The plan we launched today is built on more than 70 field assessment and valuable consultation with national and local authorities. And by contributing to this plan, you support the work of a large and solid network of national and international organizations committed to saving lives, protecting those most in need, and laying the groundwork for recovery. Failing to respond will not only leave a significant part of the affected population behind, but will also compromise hard-won development gains in a context already hit by the pandemic. I thank, as a humanitarian coordinator, those member states that have generously contributed to the existing humanitarian plan, and ask others to swiftly step up to support this revised plan so that the journey towards resilience and reconstruction can begin. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Gustavo, for that really helpful overview of the situation on the ground, but also for highlighting the enormous extent of the cooperation between the government, civil society, the UN, and other international actors in having a much more effective response to this disaster. Thanks again.